We didn't get our ding. Hey everyone, this is Miracles and Wonder Down Under, and Louise is hanging out her washing, even though it's grey and raining, and there are lots of fabulous clouds with this intense sun glow brightening through the sky. She's just saved a cockroach, long-legged creature. It was at the end of its life. And we have some cryptic conversation to have with you today.
Yeah, I'm not far away.
Shit, not far away. Creating the reality you want. What comes first, experience or belief? How to be certain what you know is true. Maybe we should do one at a time. But I was thinking, I was writing the other day about just this thing. Imagine that. Just this thing in my fabulous book about translating New Age concepts into the language of living masters. It begins with a glossary of terms that define your experience as a seeker, on a soulful journey. From this place, you know yourself as a dutiful philosopher of life's struggles and rewards, as a naive and willing subject of a greater plan for both your life and the planet itself. That is the New Age concept, language. These words stain your map of the world with labels that guide each step, each street paved with the ink that unfolds ahead. The promise of life-changing thoughts. This is the world where thought and action are one. And then I put it down, and I was going to write some more later, and I watched this movie, The Last Train to Lisbon, and with Jeremy Irons, and it's beautiful, and it has a book in it. It is about a writer who never actually appears in the film. And the first part of the book that's read out in the film goes like this. If it is so that we live only a small part of the life that is within us, what happens to the rest? We live here and now. Everything that has passed lives in other places, mostly forgotten. What could and should be done with all the time that lies ahead of us, open and unshaped, feather light in its freedom and lead heavy in its uncertainty? And I went on to quote parts, and it's extraordinarily written, and went on to quote other parts of the book where he said that the places that you have been, your past lives in the places that you have been, and when you go back there, you have an experience of your past in those places, and not necessarily with those people because they've gone on and done something else, but definitely with those people and what happens to the person that you were when you go back there as the person you are, and this extraordinary relationship that you have with time and experience. And it was just, and the other movie I got for the same day was about Dickens, and I don't really look at the descriptions. I just kind of go, yeah, that one. So I ended up getting this beautiful novel that doesn't actually exist in the world, and another one about Dickens. So when I went to the library, I went, yeah, let's get some Kafka. I haven't read that for a while. Not that that has much to do with what we're talking about today, but there you go.
Must have something to do with it. Good morning, everyone. My washing's hung out now. Feels good.
But it's that train. You know, like, what train do you follow? If you're here and it's not a to-do list, then, you know, which sparkles, which moths are you distracted by? Which butterflies do you follow into the forest? Like, what sense of inspiration in this moment are you connected to? Are you aware of? Because when you drop that to-do list and the goals and the sense of achievement and where am I going and how do I keep control of everything, and whatever the other questions are, it is just about sparkles and moths and butterflies and cockroaches, yeah, but whatever it is that grabs your imagination in this moment, not as I must, or it will happen if, or how fabulous would it be.
Yes.
When I was thinking about Ken Stone, who's doing his solstice, it was probably yesterday, and when he talks about giving people an experience of the spiritual. And I just ask myself the question without really, sitting for an answer. Just kind of let that be the vibration for the next few days. What does that mean for what I do, for what we do through not just the show, but through the perfect present as well? Like there's a sense that he just drops people in without any of that cognitive stuff and just says, here is an experience of the spiritual. And it is kind of, it's a time out for people, and some people get a sense of how it's therapeutic, etc., etc. And then thinking about the professional development with the holistic circus and the questions that they asked before we go there are, what are your preferred learning styles? And how that all ties in with, how are you present? And if a meditation brings you back to presence, then what is happening the rest of the time? What are you tuned to? How are you present? Because maybe there is a language for that as well. Like there is a love language and there is a learning visual, audio, kinesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
So for presence,
yeah,
maybe different people have different combinations of what keeps them present. And I don't mean keeps them in a calm sense of certainty. I mean presence to what's going on, and embodied presence to what's going on. What is the language of presence?
For some reason, it's just making me think of the M-branding thing, where some people are very anchored to the present from their mind, knowing, from their working things out, mind knowing, questioning things and trying to find answers to things and work out things.
Yeah.
Gel.
How they all fit together, what's the map?
And then other people are just totally emotionally, it's like, where you were talking before about being in a place and it sparks off other resonance, emotional, well, you were saying it sparks off other memories, that story.
But you visit a part of yourself.
Yeah, you visit a part of yourself.
Yeah.
But I think often for those people it feels like it's quite an emotional, well, maybe that's just for me, it feels like it's quite an emotional, resonance that you drop into. I think it's true for everyone, maybe around that area. Like, because it's not so I don't know if people have that cognitively, if they go into a place and go, oh, yes, I remember when this happened, and they pull it apart, or if it is very, it's just dropped into the feeling of what it was when you were there last time. And when I was, like, as I thought, I was thinking, well, what's the guts thing then? Because there probably is people who, it's kind of instinctual somewhere, like their experience of stuff is very.
What does that mean? Tell me about that.
I don't know, just like in their guts, in their. I don't know what it means.
So, like,
but I mean, because
like having bowel reactions.
Well, I'm just relating to me and my partner at the moment, where he's very thinking about it and I'm very feeling it, and then I'm going, well, there must be maybe there's a third thing too, because and all that M-branding stuff they talk about, that gut instinct, that is where you feel it in your guts,
Which feels very bowel related, like where that constipation and...
But it is very physical. Maybe it is just that. It's just that you feel sick. You feel like, oh, someone punched in the guts, like it's very physical, into your physicality. You start feeling sick again. You start feeling tired, I don't know, it just feels like it's into your, like you said, your guts. And I think, like even the topic of today, like about belief preceding experience, how tricky is that to follow to keep yourself alert to the chain of that when you've got all these other competing energetics playing. Like, well, if we're just in this room here now, me and you, having whatever our experience is this morning.
Well, no, you have yours and I have mine. With power,
But having the experiences that we're having.
Yeah.
But then there's also the layers of, last time we were here, last lifetime we were together, I don't know, whatever other resonances are playing.
But that's all here. They're not separate. They're not in other layers. They're all present in this layer. There is no sense that lives somewhere else. Well, not for me.
Well, I'm just thinking about it in terms of relationship. Like you come into present time in a relationship and then you've got, you think you are somewhere. You think you are present with that person somewhere new for you and them. Like you feel like you've come in, you've walked a journey. We're back into the journey thing.
Yeah.
But it feels like, in the way, I'm just saying, the way it's perceived in a movie, if you watch a movie, people walk a journey, they go from woe to go, So we feel like in our lifetimes, particularly at the moment we have so many different relationships that play through our lifetime, we walk this journey and it feels like we're getting better at it, or it feels like things are changing through the way we operate in relationship. Whether it gets better or worse, it's up for discussion. But, it feels like your ability to be in a relationship and love someone is changing, improving, whatever you want to call it. But then when you're here with this person in present time, sometimes it feels like some of those other layers, leftover things from other relationships, are percolating here now. They're playing here now, and as much as they have everything to do with that relationship that's playing here now, it also feels like they're leftover baggage from something else.
I understand. So you're talking about the relationship as your experience, or you're talking about the relationship as something that exists outside of yourself?
As your experience, like coming into like me and you right here now.
Yeah.
We're sitting here having some kind of professional experience, some kind of relationship, right? But layered in over that is all the other people I've worked with in my life. The experiences I've had with them are resonating here, are almost like they're echoing.
Okay. And how does that manifest?
I go to the doctor this week. I've had shitty experiences with doctors all my life. I go to this doctor, he may be nice, he may be friendly, he may explain everything to me, he may be completely professional in his manner, but I feel like shit because I'm carrying all the baggage from other experiences that I've had. So I walk into that room and I'm operating out of fear, out of upset, out of trauma, out of, I don't know, whatever you want, but I'm operating out of all these other experiences that don't really feel like they're there in the room, but I've brought them into the room. It may not be the experience that's about to occur there, but somehow I make it into that experience because I'm bringing them, which I guess is very much about our topic today.
So I guess how do you, so the question you asked before is how do you become aware of that in the moment?
It's actually a question. Look, people, we're so on topic. It's just fantastic. No. How to know what to focus on so you can stay present to your embodied experience. Because it feels like for a lot of us...
That's what I was saying about the butterflies and the moths and the sparkles. What do you focus on? But you're saying there's another element for people.
Well, I think it's
because
within their own perception. Like, people are so caught in their own perception. You know, they've read all the books and they've tried to work out all the right ways of thinking about things, and, you know, like, you've got to stay in the positive and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. All the things that we've read about being in the now and being Buddhist and having it as it is and being in the moment and, you know, not letting you going off with this or that or the other. Like, we've all been reading all these instruction manuals about how to stay embodied in the present experience.
Mm.
But it feels like even that are layers that take you out of it. I mean, you can't get taken out of it, I know, but it is how to decide which sparkle to follow, even in a conversation with someone. You know, even in this conversation now, it's like
your own. Well, anyway, but I just think, hang on, before you go any further, like, there is a sense that when we wrote this, I was talking about perception as in the human ability, the way perception works in our, you know, system, the way our brain processes data as reality.
Give us a quick downline on that.
But then I think the next thing is you're also talking about, and I think this is why it's so magical when we have these conversations, because when we start out with these things, I just go, yeah, you just focus on the sparkles. But for most people, there is a sense that they are pre-assessing the situation they're in based on stuff that their perceptual bias is keeping in place. So doctors are bad, this will be painful, people aren't trustworthy, whatever that perceptual bias is.
I can't be myself in relationships.
Yeah, if I say this word, something will happen. Whatever, and it doesn't even have to be that concrete. Like, a lot of your perceptual bias is so subtle. It's difficult to delineate in this moment.
It makes me think of Course in Miracles. When you do the Course in Miracles book, the very beginning of it is very much about going around the room and just going, this cup is not a cup. This computer is not a computer. This girl is not a girl.
Wow.
This sign is not a sign.
Because they do that.
This carpet is not a carpet.
Too,
I don't know much about Scientology. But, you know, just getting you to break down all the perceptions you have of everything, of what you think you know about anything.
Yeah. Well, that's when you study the nature of perception. Well, for me, when I studied the nature of perception, it did just that. The idea that the data, our senses, whether it's touch, taste, sight, hearing, whatever it is, even that emotional sense, but just to start with, that very physical interaction we have with the so-called physical world is not physical. It is a trick. Like, there is an energetic, electric, chemical trick that allows you to think that you are in a physical world, but there is no actual distinction between physical and non-physical. From a scientific perspective, there is a spectrum of the speed of atoms. Some of them are slower and faster, and the slower they are, the more solid they appear, but they only appear as a trick of perception. So all of that data, there is no such thing as hot and cold. It is a perception. There is a sense that it, you know, all these measurable aspects of physical reality are not as fixed as we assume. I mean, they have to be for us to walk around in the world and have a linear physical experience, but to say that this is real and this is not real is arbitrary.
And that makes me think of that Russian baby gymnastics training video, but it also makes me think of the videos I've been watching this morning of people doing physical feats, of doing acrobatics. And I was saying to Mel before I even started the show, I was like, what the heck, we've got to talk about what's going on with the human body, because people are just doing tricks that, like, last week were impossible. It feels like every week.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries.
The boundaries are being totally, you know, like I saw a circus show a couple of weeks ago and we just went, wow, that's, like, those tricks are just on the edge. And then I watched this video this morning and I'm like, man, no, those tricks are on the edge. That's a whole nother level. They've they've combined things in a whole nother way that is death-defying. Well, it's not death-defying, but it's, you know, it's outside the bounds of what we think is possible with the human body.
Yeah.
And there was this other video on YouTube recently of these, they must have been acrobats or gymnasts or something, but training their babies, and they're in like wherever they are,
in the snow,
in the gulag somewhere, but they're in the snow, in the forest, in their underwear, and they've got these babies, and they're like
naked babies,
throwing them around like they're rubber toys.
Yeah, yeah.
And the babies did look a little distressed, I must say, but generally the forces on their body were things that we would not consider safe. They were beyond the limits of safety. But you know, the way that people train for acrobatics in different countries varies dramatically, and the standard of what their bodies can do varies dramatically based on those beliefs. Yeah, yeah. So you know, it really is, even like when Mel talks about the kind of physical spectrum to where that physical, and I just keep thinking about the Matrix, you know, take the red pill or the blue pill, what's real and what's solid and what's real and what's measurable and what's not.
Well, it's all measurable. I mean, but the thing is that there is no line. Like, we keep making lines. It is the nature of human cognition to distinguish things into boxes. That is how we are designed. That is how our brain is designed. And we are designed to have senses that give us the illusion that we are separate for a reason, you know, and so we can exist in linear time. It's not that these things are faulty. It's just that when you understand that they are a trick in order for us to have this experience, it's like when you go into a video game, you know that you have to have a modem and an internet connection and a keyboard and whatever it is that you have to have in order to play the game. You don't go, oh, screw this thing, how dare they make me use this equipment. That's what's required in order to have that experience. And as it pushes even further, and they have the cool glasses where you have the 3D thing and you've got the probes on you. I read this amazing Ted Williams book, and they actually immersed you in this gel, and you had these virtual reality experiences where you could actually die. If you died in the game, you would die in real life, because your brain doesn't understand the difference between what it's seeing and touching when you're conscious and what it's seeing and touching when you're imagining. Like, there's not a lot of difference between that stuff. And that's another line that people like to draw. If you're not out there physically doing it, then you're not doing it. But your brain does. It takes all that stuff in.
I always love that example of what is it on what the bleep, you know, and I use it with the kids at school, not quite how the lady used it on what the bleep, but, you know, she says, you know, it's obvious, really, you know, when a man touches a woman in flesh and blood, he'll get an erection, his physiology will change, all the things will start pumping. If he's heterosexual. Well, you know, she's just, a man is attracted to a woman, but that same man can just think it. Yeah. And I love watching the kids' faces when I say that to them. I don't say they have erection, but I just say, you know, like, aroused. When you see a boy and you like him, you get excited. But when you're at home thinking about that boy, you still get just as excited. Your whole body reacts, boom, same way. But it's also about learning. Like, the way your brain fires doesn't know the difference between so-called real and non-real. So when you train, if you imagine training over and over and over again, you will get the same learning results as when you physically train over and over and over again. It's cool. Like, your brain is at your disposal. Your perceptual biases are at your disposal. They're not things to think of as limitations. They're the tools that you have. But when you understand them, it makes that being present easier. Well, and also, though, it's funny because me and a friend, we went, all right, that's cool. We're doing this acrobatics clowning act, and we are not living near each other, so we will just virtually train, you know. We'll, like, use that whole theory, and we will know that we're both training at the same time, and we will run our minds through the break. It's bloody hard, mate. It's bloody just as hard as going and physically driving up to Brisbane and doing the real thing. Like, to keep your focus, to keep your intention focused on every millisecond of the actual experience of doing that in a virtual way, not virtual, but, you know, in an imagined way, is very, to block out all that's here now and stay right with that other experience, after a while, I was like, hey, Emma, we'll just hang out together because that's, you know, like it's bloody hard work.
It uses a lot
and
of
it takes
energy.
as much time, actually, unless you get, I mean, I'm sure there's ways you can get very practiced at it, but if you want to, you know, train acrobatics in that way, there seems to be a really another necessary discipline that, you know, that discipline of traveling together, warming up, stretching, training, going through the motions has a particular discipline, but doing it within your mind also has a particular discipline.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. I found it funny because I was kind of like, oh, yeah, we'll just do it the virtual way. It's like cheating. No worries. We'll just whip through it.
But it doesn't have to be an either or. I mean, that could be your meditative process where you know, learn to focus and be in that space.
Well, and I think the things that we naturally remain good at through our life, or we naturally remain adept at, somehow we've naturally absorbed that process. You know, like if I can still do backflips now, somewhere I've naturally absorbed the process of no matter what I'm doing and where I am, knowing that is a possibility for me. Whereas someone else has shut it down at some point. They've gone, no, I can't do them anymore. I'm too old. My bones don't work. My back's broken. I don't know. You know, it's not something that old people do, or, you know, whatever's chimed in has inhibited them from still accessing that reality. So somewhere I must be playing in the background a thing that says Louise still flips. It's possible.
She's part capable. Of your certain truths about yourself.
And I, you know, like even, I don't know where the point is where you set that up, like, because somewhere some things are very, you know, I'm musical, I'm creative, I'm, you know, a good worker, I'm whatever. Some things are easily embodied by different people at different times, and they become natural very naturally. You know, some people are born sports people, some people are born whatever. It feels like to them there was no effort required. It was a natural instinct or a natural ability.
It fulfilled a lot of their... So you have this whole pod of things that need to be satisfied in order for you to feel safe and worthy and like you belong. Like there is somewhere for those people that are so-called natural athletes, when they're doing athletics, a lot of those pods are being lit up. So for them, it answers a lot of those prerequisites for feeling loved.
And then I go, how, you know, like particularly when you want to, again, when you want to switch something, when you want something to be different for you, you know, like say it is, you know, I've always had crappy relationships. There's always upset and violence or whatever. Then you come to a point where you go, I want to turn that around. I want it to be different. Why in some situations, like, you know, like I'm jumping all over the place, but, you know, on the weekend I was at a whole bunch of different events doing Have a Go Circus. And you can see the people who don't think they can do it, who don't think they play, who don't think they're creative, who don't think they can learn new tricks, who don't think they can even have fun with their kids, who don't think they can be free enough to make a fool of themselves in front of other people. Sometimes reality flips for them and they come right on in the circle and they play and they have fun and they learn something new and they go off and they restore a connection or they reactivate a connection with their kids from a whole new place.
Yeah.
Mostly that actually happens. So even though, I feel like there's some, you know, there's a magician there. I'm there going, this space is hell for people to have a miracle, to have an amazing shift of consciousness. There's something else that fires for them or triggers for them where they actually let themselves come in, where they're willing to go with me. Even though they don't trust themselves really, they're willing to go with me. And I'm just going, what is the thing that...
It reminds me of, do you know that story about the man in his coat and the wind and the sun had a competition?
Yeah.
And the wind said, I bet you I can get the man to take his coat off. Like, I'll blow it off his body. And the sun said, yeah, sure, go for it. Let's take that challenge. It feels like when people... And so... the wind tries and fails and the sun comes out and obviously the man gets hot and takes his coat off. But it feels like that kind of, like when you have someone in deep doorways, that doesn't want to go into an experience. They have those doorways there for a reason. It's not to say that those doorways are resistance or obstructions or whatever it is, but they need a particular situation in order for those to open. There's something about the invitation that you offer in that space that allows even and I think you focus on the deepest doors. Like there's somewhere in what you do that says the bigger like the thicker the wood, the harder the I can't do this, that I need to be sturdy, I need to stand here and be stone. Like the stronger that is, the way that you operate allows that to be open. Because it's like, it's not about persistence. Like for some people, there are situations where if they've always been labelled as shy, they may need 3 times for you to ask, and then they may need you to leave them alone and then pretend they're not there so that they can slip in sideways. They need to know that they're welcome, and then they need to know that you're not watching so that they can participate. And then they don't necessarily want you to praise them because that means that you've spotted them, and that will they will feel like they've been big spotlight and they won't do it again.
Didn't rat it out.
Yeah. So if you invite them at least more than once, generally more than twice, and then ignore that they're there and allow them to have their experience, but don't praise them afterwards. I mean, you can say, as you're asking other kids or people or whatever, how was that? And include them as if they were just part of the crowd. That's fine. But if you single them out afterwards, like, I got you, I tricked you, I got you to play, then they go, screw you, I'm never going to do this again. So there's ways of those people where they feel safe, how to give them that invitation. And I think that's what you do.
Yeah, no, I guess the thing that I'm going, in terms of...
Because it's not the shy ones, it's the hard ones.
In terms of the questions that we had out there, I think most people want to understand the nature of perception and know what to stay focused on in the present to embody their experience, because they want to see a particular outcome. Like most of us are on some manifestation journey and we want things to change, whether it's relationships or situations or events in the world. We're so focused on wanting to see that change. And no matter what we're looking at, we're still looking at it from this place of going, how did the magic happen? In that situation, it feels like it flows. In other situations in my life, I feel like I'm pushing shit uphill. And in some other situations, I feel like I might as well just give up now because the problem's too big for me to even handle. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I always seem to want to bring that in.
Yeah, but that's the belief before experience. That takes you straight back to the belief before the experience. That outcome won't be there unless you believe it is there.
But I'm going in that situation.
Experience.
I'm just going in that situation where someone just happens to be walking by a circus show and suddenly they're juggling.
Yeah.
And they've never really consciously thought, oh, I want to change that pattern of behaviour. I want to have this kind of experience. It feels like they haven't put an order into the universe.
But it's not about change.
But then other places they've put an order into the universe and they are trying desperately to manifest it and it doesn't come through.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the have why have you forsaken me, Lord? But not, why have you forsaken me, Lord? But it does feel like that sometimes. It's like
I'm trying so hard.
We're working towards peace on the planet. Everyone knows there's, very few people on the planet who actually want to disrupt the peace. But most of us feel like we're arguing with everyone we love every minute of the day. We're in some kind of constant struggle. And so even though I think it's the conscious level, we're going, I want peace. I want this world to be a peaceful place for my children. I want peace. It feels like we're in a battle, and then we're seeing it in lots of things around us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just think it comes back to that, well, how does it serve you? Because somewhere having those arguments with the people that you love and having those battles, you keep going back to them for a reason. There's a sense that they keep you safe, or they instill worth, or they let you know that there is a place for you, that what you have to say is worthwhile. You're here to convince people that they shouldn't think the way they do. Like, there's some sense that whatever that impetus is to be in the battle, it's keeping you who you are. But if you can identify how that's working, if you can identify how that's occurring.
But it just makes me think there's some underlying programs where we've made the battle what keeps us in connection, in present time, embodied. Like, it feels like for a lot of people, that battle somewhere is the thing that anchors us back into the moment. Like, we're floating, we're I don't know, it feels like we're floating. Or, you know, we're just on the trajectory, we're driving up the freeway and we don't know where we're going. I mean, we know where we're going, but we've forgotten that we're going there. We're just singing along to the radio. And then suddenly it's like, shit, come in, spinner. I don't know, it feels like we've got some automatic pilot on to use the conflict, to use the to anchor us back in the moment, like to bring us back into present time, to embody, to come right in, you know, somewhere. It feels like it's some default setting that we've got ourselves into, like particularly in relationship. You know, things are just kind of rolling along, not really connecting, and then suddenly it's like boom bar, some drama occurs and you have an excuse to reconnect, re-establish the connection, to come back to, I don't know, come back to facing off with each other. But it's like because we've lost the ability to connect in a less aggressive way.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, it's almost like a default. I feel like I just keep wanting to say default setting.
Yeah.
Like a default setting. And when you were saying, you know, figure out how it serves you, and if that's how it's serving us, that default setting, you know, to bring us back to connection, to bring us back to presence.
Yeah, so then acknowledge it and be grateful and decide whether you want to keep doing it that way or whether you'd like to have a different experience. And either way, you're going to be getting what you want.
So again, if you are doing that, if you're going, how's this experience serving me? And you're seeing how it's serving you, I mean, it feels like there's still another point of getting back stuck in the loop. You know, I'll use things like smoking again, but it's that sense of, or whether it's fighting in relationship, or how you come in with people, how you come in with yourself around things that you want to change. Because it feels like we're still in that battle. We're in the loop of a battle, you know? Like,
if you want to change things, you are. But how can you be present?
But if you go, it's not serving you.
But you can't do, like, you can't be focused on change and being present. You're being present to your job, and your job happens to be with Greenpeace or as a politician or whatever it is, and you're doing your job. You're not focused on change. You're doing your job, being present. Other people can explain it in a story that says you're changing the world or you're making it better or you're on a journey or whatever it is. But you are being present doing your job. If you want to be present, you can't be focused on change because you're not being present. You're in the past in comparison, looking at what other people are doing, judging them, figuring out whether what you're doing is worthy or right or good or proper or whatever it is. That's not present.
Water, please. Thank you. Yeah.
And you can still do all the same things. You just don't understand them in the same way. You know, like we still run a course to stand with people. I don't call it teaching. I wouldn't call it helping people. You know, and if I have the same conversation with one person and they say, "Oh, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, this is what's true," I say, "Hallelujah, you know what's true for you." That makes me incredibly happy. And I have a conversation with the next person who says, "That's exactly, you just put it into words and I'm just so happy that you told me." It's the same. I've done my job either way. It doesn't matter about the reaction that people have. My job is to say what needs to be said when I'm doing what I'm told. I can't control the rest of it. And it's not about changing them. It's not about how they receive it or what happens, because you don't have the key to how that works. I mean, it's like all those stories. Something happened that seemed insignificant to the person who was present with that person, and that person had a very significant moment that clicked in for them 20 years later.
Mm.
That other person that felt it was insignificant, if they had looked for the evidence of significance in that moment and waited 20 years to find out that it was worth doing, that they'd done it properly. I mean, what a wasted 20 years. I'm not sure what the... Like, you don't have time. You don't have time to sit there looking at the outcome. You have to keep being present. The same way that it takes energy to imagine that you're doing circus, it takes energy to be present. If you've got energy left over to worry about what other people are doing or how they're receiving it or whatever, then you're not being present. It takes all of your energy to be here.
So that's our solstice story.
Oh, yeah. So what is the solstice?
No, sorry, equinox. Equinox.
What does the equinox?
Equinox. Well, here it is, the spring equinox. Very exciting business. Very exciting business.
Before you do that, I just had the image of you kind of being, because you know how time is curved space. Yeah, and we kind of go like that. There's a big sun, there's a dip in it. It's like a big sheet. It's kind of like you are one of those bodies.
Sounds like a puppet show to me.
It's like being on a blanket and you kind of dip as one of those solar bodies and being present. You know, everything is not being held, but you are conscious of where everything is. That's what it feels like. And there was another thing about the human limitation, like the body sense of being pushed further and further, that bound